What business, specifically CEOs, want to hear from the president tonight. Joining us now is CNBC contributor Bill George, Harvard Business School professor and former chairman and CEO of Medtronic. Joining me here on set, he is also the author of a brand new book, True North Groups. And Gary Loveman also with us, chairman and CEO and president of Caesars Entertainment. Gentlemen, good to have you on the program. Thank you so much for joining us. Bill, nice to see you again. Thank you for spending the time. This is an important speech for the president. What are you expecting to hear from him?
I'll tell you what I'd like to hear, and that's that we've reached our deficit limit and we have to create jobs at the private sector, that we can't continue to subsidize government jobs, and the government's got to get out of the way and support private sector investment through a combination of allowing us to repatriate profits if we overseas, if we reinvest in equipment in the United States. I think we need to encourage the free trade deals and try to create something with the Americas. But I think more important, I think the regulators are really hampering the energy industry, healthcare industries. A lot of industries right now are being held back by regulations, and every time they seem to go forward, like Boeing, there's something getting in their way. So
from the perspective of Caesars and from the perspective really of what's happening in business today, do you agree, sir, that it is the regulatory environment? Would you like to see comprehensive tax reform being talked about as well in this upcoming speech?
Well, Maria, I would, and I think everything Bill just said is meritorious, but there are regulatory issues that fall outside of the normal debate, and I'll give you two quick examples. Today, across the world, there were visitors who would like to come to the United States who waited in long lines to get an American visa and were turned away because the office is closed. If we were to simply add sufficient staff to allow people who would like to come to the United States to process a visa, people in the hospitality industry could create tens of thousands of new jobs very quickly to serve them. If we could offer online gaming in the way that it's offered in the United Kingdom, France, and Italy today in the United States, my industry could create 50,000 new jobs in a period of less than a year. So in certain cases, this is just liberalization of free enterprise activity and not simply over-regulation of existing activity.
You know, I think you make a great point, Gary. I actually was on the phone with another business leader just a little while ago. He made the same point that there are lines and lines and lines of people trying to get visas and cannot get into this country. Who wouldn't want thousands of Brazilians, Chinese, etc., coming into America, spending that money at theme parks, at casinos, restaurants, etc., the hotel business? How do you unlock that business? I mean, what's the language you want to hear from the president tonight that actually gives you some confidence that that actually will be attacked?
Well, I think the president would have to indicate that he's willing to take a methodical look, industry by industry, of instances like this, where there's an obvious gain available in the most uncontroversial way to move ahead opportunity for business growth. I've given you two. I'm sure that Bill has examples from his business, and I think every industry has these.
Bill,
they're relatively non-controversial, and they're big opportunities.
I think Gary's right on. Also, I might mention H-1B visas. We need to get those freed up. But if I were the president, he's got a great person, John Bryson, who's waiting to be confirmed. For some reason it didn't being confirmed. Make him the job czar in the White House and let him work with business to create investment and get the bureaucrats, if you will, the regulators out of the way so we can actually make those investments, Maria. The opportunities are there. My students at Harvard, to his point, are being sent home because they can't get visas to continue to work in this country.
Extraordinary. You know, I mean, it's also an issue when you look at the end market demand.
Yes.
I mean, that's also part of the story. So how do you get the demand story, the demand part of the story moving? Because, of course, businesses are not going to hire new workers if they don't expect that the business is going to be there.
Well, but if we can start exporting again, I mean, like Boeing. Take Boeing, for example. The Dreamliner plant in South Carolina is being held up.
This is a big issue. Talk about that. I think this is a very important issue that you just bring up.
President Obama's National Labor Relations Board is blocking Boeing's startup. They want to hire 6,000 to 10,000 people to export. The Dreamliner for the next 30 years is going to be the most important export we have in the United States. Tens of billions of orders coming in.
So the story is Boeing wants to create another plant very close to the plant that's already there in the Carolinas, right? And that's a union plant. But because the second plant is not union, they're stopping him from the company from putting this plant in.
Well, that's right. And they're also adding 2,000 people in Seattle. It's not like Boeing's anti-union.
Right.
But there are lots of plants. Mercedes has a plant. BMW has a plant in South Carolina right next door. I just think that's a good example.
That's a fantastic point. Gary, do you agree with that? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with that entirely. I would just add one other piece, Maria, that I think will get missed this evening, and that is attention to the revitalization of the American housing sector. If you look at a city like Las Vegas or many of the underperforming regions in the United States, the only way we'll see really substantial job growth is if the housing sector sees some revitalization. We need to have homeowners who have homes that are worth well less than their mortgage obligations, have those loans restructured and allow them to begin to pay them on a reduced basis, consistent with the value of the home today, and use the monies that are otherwise being used unproductively in these contests to go out and make other purchases and fuel growth in these areas. So I think real attention to how to get the housing sector growing is essential to revitalization of job growth.
All right, guys, thank you very much. I know you'll be sticking around as we await the president's comments. Thanks so much, Bill George, Gary Loveman. Let's, as we await the president.